Hi everyone! For today's video, I'm going to be talking about mental health and weight loss and how I changed my decision making or who was making the decisions, and that helped to lead me to lose 183 pounds. Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carla and I lost 183 pounds over a 14-month period. I honestly can say that this weight loss journey that I embarked upon is completely different because of the work that I did on my mental health. And I get so many questions relating to mental health constantly. So I thought I would do a little bit of a video about decision making and who was making the decisions for me prior to losing weight and then actually on my weight loss journey. Might sound a little bit abstract, but hopefully it will make sense by the end of the video. Also over on my Instagram, HalfofCarla, which I document my entire journey if you want to go over and follow me there, I asked if anyone had any questions specifically relating to this topic, so I have a couple of questions to go through at the end. Okay, I am going to start off by just saying that this is my experience. It is deeply personal and quite vulnerable to share this with the internet. I'm not going to get into the genesis of any, trauma or any details, but I just, please be respectful when commenting underneath. And also, I'm not saying that this is anybody else's experience or that anybody should do this, but this is my experience. So to give you an idea, I have been overweight my entire life and I have always tried to lose weight with very little success, constantly going on diets and trying to use willpower and white knuckling it to get through. I would have had some success, but then I would end up putting the weight back on again. And the reason is that I never actually addressed what was going on inside me. I was constantly looking externally and outside for help. And not only help, but also kind of blaming everything outside and not actually taking responsibility and looking internally to see what was going on inside me. So I, as I said, have been overweight my whole life, and it started to get really, really, really bad around my late 20s and my early 30s, and I was piling on weight. I had done some therapy in about 10-12 years ago for binge eating disorder, and I had overcome binge eating disorder and I wasn't necessarily binging anymore, but I had food addiction. And food addiction is where you're constantly consumed by thoughts of food. And one day I realized why that was. I realized something was going on, that this was more than just, food addiction. We throw that term around, but what is causing that addiction? I realized that I basically had a lot of childhood trauma that I wasn't really dealing with or wasn't really aware of. And I was kind of stuck at a certain point in my life, and probably as a young child. And that young child was carrying an awful lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of, uncertainty. And through that childhood trauma, it created, and that shame, I really have to say that shame has such an impact. I was constantly having this negative self-talk. So I was always putting myself down, saying I wasn't worthy, was really hard on myself. No matter what I did, no matter what I achieved in my life, even though I had a pretty successful career, even though I had a loving relationship, I had good friends, nothing mattered because I was overweight and I was obese, and there was this constant rhetoric going on in my head all the time. And I mean all the time. I was putting words into other people's mouths. If I was walking down the street, I'd be like, well, those people probably think that I'm this because I'm so overweight. I thought a lot of this was to do with just being overweight, but I didn't become overweight by accident. You don't become 320 plus pounds by accident. Something has to be going on inside to deal with it. That's my experience anyway. And I realized at one point that there was this childhood trauma that I wasn't really dealing with. And that childhood trauma and the shame from that was causing this negative self-talk. So as opposed to actually thinking that I had shame because I was obese, my shame my obesity was actually the result of the shame I was carrying. I was literally building a barrier between myself and the world because I just didn't want to deal with it. And also, this negative self-talk was so difficult and so traumatizing and so painful to have to constantly listen to, that all I wanted to do was escape my body. And that's how I became overweight, is because I was using food as my escape or my flight response to what was going on inside me. You probably heard of the flight, fight, freeze responses. So I was responding with flight. People can respond with flight with gambling, with drugs, with sex, with alcohol. They're really typical. And food is one of them. And typically addiction can be associated with escaping some kind of trauma that's going on inside you. And that's what I was doing. I was escaping the feelings that I was having inside of me and this negative self-talk with food, and basically numbing out. So I didn't have to deal with it. And that is how I became obese. Because when the adult me leaves my body because it's too painful, what's left over is that traumatized child. And we all know that children are not making logical decisions. Their decisions are typically based on emotion and, like trying to be soothed. And that's what I was doing. I was trying to soothe that child. That child was just looking for love and for affection and and in my experience, food was kind of associated with that, was associated with love and affection. So when I had that realization, I then knew that I had to embark on another therapeutic journey, which is what I did. And in October 2019, I started working with a different therapist, and the therapy that we worked on was the mind-body connection. So I was always... Previously, for my binge eating disorder, I worked on relationship therapy and my relationship with food and with people in my family and in my life. But for to overcome my food addiction, we worked on the mind-body connection. So instead of having that disconnect between what was going on inside me and that childhood trauma that I was carrying in my body, we worked on working through that trauma, and therefore allowing the adult Carla, and I'm really sorry to talk about myself in the third person, I know it's kind of weird, but allowing the adult Carla to be present in my body to make logical and sensical decisions, to make a more mature decision for my life, or decisions all across my life. So basically, prior to my weight loss journey, there was a traumatized child making all the decisions for me based around food, because I had this constant 24/7 narrative and negative self-talk, and I was trying to escape that. So the adult Carla was leaving, was never present in my body, and this child was taking over and making the decisions for me. But working through that work with therapy and healing that trauma and allowing myself to be uncomfortable in my body, to learning to be okay with being uncomfortable, that was really challenging. But doing that allowed me to be grounded in my body in order to make sensical decisions and mature and logical decisions that ultimately helped me to be in a place to tackle my weight loss and to actually lose that 183 pounds, because I wasn't making emotive food related decisions anymore. I was making decisions that were based on where I needed to be and what I needed to do in order to lose that weight. I basically was working with this therapist from October 2019 for just over a year to November 2020. And I would still dip my toes back in over the last year as well, whenever I felt that I needed to reconnect with myself, or if I was, struggling through something. But I do believe that it's the work that I did to heal this childhood trauma and heal the genesis of my obesity and my negative self-talk and this trauma is what led this to be the successful and sustainable weight loss journey that I've had. I have lost 183 pounds, and even though right now I'm nearly 9 months pregnant, I am still using the tools and the healing that I have done in therapy in order to help me in all aspects of my life. This is not about white knuckling it or using willpower. It's about a whole person holistic change. And by doing that work, it's really led me to be a much happier and whole person. It's really something that I felt that I had to do, and I'm so glad that I did it. And it was painful and it was hard to do, but it's been worth it. It's been worth coming out the other end of it. I thought I would just talk through as well a couple of things that are different now than that were before, prior to my weight loss journey and prior to having this realization and doing this mental health work. The first thing is that the adult Carla makes decisions now. So I am not making decisions as much from a place of emotion or a place of sometimes I'm still am, but the adult is making the decisions. They are logical decisions. So I know that if I'm going to go and reach for nachos, which were one of my trigger foods, that they don't sit well with me. They don't make me feel great, sometimes I want them, sometimes I'm going to have them, and that's okay. And I can have a pre-portioned bag or something like that. But I'm not reaching for them because I know that they don't actually sit well with me. I can't digest them that well. So the adult is making that decision. And there's also the adult is making decisions now in a lot more areas of my life. It's led me to be more successful with my career, with my relationship, with, hopefully as I embark on parenthood, I'm also able to be aware and grounded in my body, and to deal with things that are coming up instead of escaping. So instead of running away if I'm having negative feelings, I'm able to assess what they are and try and find a good way to deal with them. Maybe it's going back to therapy. Maybe I feel like I need to set boundaries with certain people. Maybe I feel like I need to take some self-time, self-care time. And the third thing that I think has really changed is I'm not making decisions as well based so much so on emotion. So obviously, yes, I still love a piece of cake or something like that, but I'm not it's not something that I have to have, or I'm not I'm not deciding what to eat because I'm upset or I'm feeling bad about myself or I need to comfort myself. Yes, there are comfort foods, but I'm not making that decision because I feel emotional. I'm making the decision because, sometimes that would be nice to have. The final thing that's changed, that's probably the most impactful and kind of covers everything, is that I realize that I'm worthy of showing up for myself. I'm worthy of making change. Prior to this is something I did not understand. I did not believe in. I did not believe in doing work for myself. I did not believe that I was, worthy or deserved of showing up for myself or giving myself space and time to heal, to focus on myself. I had to keep giving and giving and giving to everybody else because everybody else was more important than I was. But I realized you can't give from an empty cup. Absolutely you can't. So I now understand that it's okay to give to myself, that I'm worthy of it. I'm worthy of showing up for myself. So I thought I would just answer some of the questions that you guys asked me on Instagram as well. So one of the first ones was, what steps did I take to heal the childhood trauma? And that was definitely therapy for me, was something that I needed to do in order to heal my childhood trauma. I don't believe that I could have done it by myself. I'm not saying that anybody else can't, but for me it was really therapy and working through that and being in a safe place to be guided through that trauma to heal. That was so important. Somebody else asked, did I have to get to a certain point before I started cutting calories? And in terms of my mental health work. And as I said, I started my mental health journey, this part of my journey, in October 2019. And then I started losing weight on the 21st of January 2020. So yes, I did have a 2.5 nearly 3 months of working on the genesis of my obesity, my trauma, and trying to deal with that, to be in the place that I was in order to start cutting calories and to embark on my actual weight loss journey. Somebody else asked, did I try CBT as part of my therapy and was it helpful? I didn't do cognitive behavioral therapy. I think there was some aspects of it in the therapy that I did, but for my 2 therapeutic journeys, the first one was to cure or to overcome my binge eating disorder, and I did relationship therapy for that. And then I did, for my food addiction and to heal my trauma, I did mind-body, like the connection between mind-body therapy. I'm not sure if there's a more elegant or a proper name for it, but that's how my therapist described it. Somebody asked, did I still have comfort meal or snack through my weight loss, or one that felt comforting? And I would say no. I tried to remove the association of comfort with food throughout my journey. I would eat things that maybe I had considered comforting prior to it, but because I didn't feel that need to get comfort from food, and probably because I had done that bit of work prior to cutting calories, I think that really helped. So no, I didn't necessarily like seek comfort with food anymore anyway. There were things like that are obviously more comforting, like potatoes are nicer to eat and more comforting, so I would eat those, but I wouldn't have that kind of emotional connection. Somebody asked, do I think therapy was the key to my weight loss or my learnings from Body Slims? For those of you who don't know, Body Slims is the weight loss program that I did. I have a video about it, which I can link down below, and I can link their website as well. It's a phenomenal program, and it definitely focuses on the mind-body connection, which is brilliant. And for me, Body Slims basically backed up my learnings through therapy. I don't believe that Body Slims would have been enough personally for me, and that I definitely needed to heal some really rooted things that were going on inside of me. That's not the case for everybody, because a lot of people have some phenomenal success with it. Most people have phenomenal success with Body Slims without needing to go to therapy. But for me personally, I definitely needed to work through some of that stuff. Somebody else asked, when I start feeling bad mental health days nowadays, what are the type of things I tell myself? This is a really good question. Prior to my weight loss journey and my mental health journey, I definitely would have been very hard on myself. I would have had a lot of negative self-talk and would have been very down on myself if I was feeling bad. Now I try to let the adult take over and say, okay, so what's going on here? What's causing this pain or a bad day? And I definitely still have bad days. Like, I am not, walking around in like a positive cloud constantly. And like pregnancy for me has been really challenging, mentally. So I'm trying to figure out like what's going on inside me and give myself grace. Like, life is tough, life is challenging. And it's okay that it is, and just going, okay, what do I need? I tend to go kind of into myself, make a decision from a loving place as opposed to like a negative and hurtful place. What is it that I need today that's going to help me to feel better? And if there's nothing, if I just having a bad day, okay, you're having a bad day, that's okay. I'll answer another couple of questions because I realize this video is going to be really long. But so another question is, for healing my mental health, were there things outside of therapy that helped me? Absolutely. Exercise was a huge help. I have never been into exercise before, and the only exercise that I did for my entire weight loss journey was walking. That's the only thing that I did. And it had such an impact on my mental health. I am very lucky to live beside the sea, and I would go out and I would walk by the sea and seeing light and getting outside and getting fresh air and changing my position and where I was had a huge impact on my mental health. And journaling was massive to me as well. Journaling really helped me to kind of cope with the feelings that were going on inside of me, and I do have a video coming up about my journaling experience as well, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that. And then the final question that I'm going to answer is, what do I think was different this time in terms of motivation and sticking to it after bad days? The difference this time was that I was making decisions as an adult. Did so much work on my mental health. This wasn't based on motivation. This was based on a total life change and realizing that I deserved to do this for myself. I realized that I had to be consistent in order to achieve my weight loss. And when I started to stack days that were consistent on top of each other, that's when I had really good results. And that is really the difference between any other time and this time. So everyone, I'm about to run out of battery, so I think I'm going to end this video here. I know this has been a long one, so if you have stuck with me, I really appreciate it. Please leave me some kind of emoji down below, maybe a star. I love when you guys do that, down in the comments down below if you've made it to the end of the video. I appreciate you watching this the whole way through if you have made it. And I always try and get back to everybody who leaves me one of the little emojis at the end. And please consider subscribing and turning on the notifications so you never miss a video from me, and giving this video a thumbs up, or follow me over on HalfofCarla on Instagram as well if you'd like to see more. I'm pretty active on stories and things like that. So guys, thank you so much, and I will see you all soon. Bye. Now it is time for brunch. Jesus, it is time for brunch.